So I want to welcome you to the application video for the Tarnish 50, my new favorite 3D scanning spray. Why is it my new 3D scanning spray? First, because it's really not aggressive to the surface of painted surfaces or plastics. Second, it's really good in the application. That means it's not very difficult to apply it in a thin layer like I like it. And third, it is not disappearing too fast and islanding so much on surfaces that doesn't have the perfect surface situation. Tip number 1. Dry application. What is dry application? It's the opposite of wet application. And what is wet application? Wet application is going too close to the surface of your object and not having all the solvents vaporized in the situation when the spray collides with the surface. So what happens? The particles from cyclododecan, what is the basic, let's say, particle that will create your surface in the Tarnish 50, will be still in a liquid applied on the surface, and you will see these lines of liquid that are going away from the point where the collision between the spray and the surface of your object will happen. So this is something I would avoid for two reasons. First, it doesn't make a very homogeneous surface, as you can imagine, because this liquid will collide with the surface and afterwards it will be blown to the side. So you will have some rough structure that will not have the same thickness in all areas. So dry application is the opposite. You will have enough distance to your object so all the solvents disappear mainly, and just the cyclododecan will come into contact with the surface of your object, and you will have a dry coating that's similar to some snow or powder. And this is as well because of the distance that you keep from the subject, much more homogeneous and thinner than it's possible in dry application. As well, you have to regard that in painted surfaces as well as in plastics, in the dry application you have the solvents that might attack your plastics or your paint, might have a very strong influence on the aggressive behavior of the spray. So in the case of spraying plastic or painted surface, always respect dry application because it might avoid any damage. I'm showing you here in the helmet, I'm showing you some area where there was applied spray of some different brand, and it was okay, not really harming the surface, keeping enough distance. But here I was coming too close to the surface and it attacked the plastic of the helmet. Not so much, but depending the project, it can be a problem. So you will ask maybe, how is it done to make dry application? I'm just going to show you here on this window glass how it is done. So I'm going to spray with different distances from that window glass, and I'm trying to see at which distance you start to have a homogeneous powder-like surface with no wet lines anymore from, let's say, liquid mixture from solvent and cyclododecan blown over your surface. You see that lines, it's similar to water lines that you can see on glass if you are spraying something to your glass. So you might not have always some piece of glass with you in the current situation to test your minimum distance that you can use. So just do it like I do here in this example. Go to the next window, open one side of the window if it has having two sides, or just the window itself, and spray from the outside with your arm. Make some spray points at different distances and you will find out what is your minimum distance to find dried application on your surface. And as I told you as well, for metal application you might not have the problem with wet application of attack the surface, but you will have a much better, more homogeneous coating that gives you a more reliable measurement. So Tip number 2. Don't spray the surface entirely. You don't have to paint it. It's not like in a paint job where you want to have the best coverage of your surface. That means you want just to unshow the basic color in a paint job, but here it's different. You just want to slightly blind the surface to be able to measure with the 3D scanner. It saves you money. It gives you a better, more reliable as well measurement result, and it will be better for your surface in the case of plastic, so it means less solvent or rests of solvent that coming to your surface. So it's a just benefit situation. We will do an application example with this helmet that we have here afterwards and scan it with different scanning principles like structured light scanning, LED projection, and as well laser scanning. And you will see that in any case you don't need to fully cover your surface with the 3D scanning spray to get a good result. Tip number 3. Application of markers. You might have already 3D scanned with different 3D scanning sprays, or as well sprays that have been used for crack testing, like developer sprays, and have your first impressions on how to deal with this situation. Some of the developing sprays and 3D scanning sprays that we call permanent, that don't disappear by itself, they have the problem that the markers don't stick on them. So as we suggest in the case of Tarnish 50, so this is Tarnish 50 specific, you have to test this with your different sprays that you are using. Just apply the markers on your object after you sprayed your object. Why? It's pretty easy. You don't want to clean all of them that have been, let's say, stick to the surface before you spray the object, and you will spend a lot of time by cleaning each of them. And beside the fact that you are creating, let's say, more jobs by just cleaning them, it takes you more time. You will as well not be perfectly, let's say, cleaning them on the edges. That means you will be partly around the markers as well, clean areas that you want to scan, and that means an unhomogeneous surface treatment, and this is something you don't want for sure. As well, taking off the markers from that helmet, for example, like we will show you, is much easier if they had been stick on some surface treatment, because they are not having the same adhesion to the surface of the object, and they are a bit easier to be removed. Tip number 4. You need more scanning time, and for example your object is too big, or outside it is as well too hot, what can reduce your possible scanning time with your spray on the surface. In the case of spraying sublimating sprays, you can just cool down the spray itself. That means you want to have more time on the object. The easiest way to achieve that, even if you will, I think, not have this problem using the Tarnish 50, just put it in some normal refrigerator. Don't cool it down too much. Please don't do it, because if you are cooling it down too much, it will happen that it will get stuck in spraying, so it will not have a very nice surface anymore. I think 3 to 4 degrees is the maximum that you should cool it down, because if you cool it down more in the spraying area, in the, for example, valve area here, you will have, in any case, because of the expansion of the gas, you will have a drop in temperature that can lead to some icing effects and can as well affect your spray quality. If you are cooling it down too much, you will guaranteed have that, and you don't want it for sure. So if you want to scan bigger objects, or your surface has a very small surface tension, that means rubber or any stuff that is, let's say, a bit greasy, just cool down your spray in some refrigerator, and you will be fine. You will gaining 20–30% of extra scanning time on your object that you have. This is just valid for plastics or paint surfaces. It can be as well a topic for, let's say, wrapped surfaces, car wrapping or so. Even if I never experienced any surface attack with the Tarnish 50, that's as well one of the reasons why I really like it. Just make a test spray or on some area that you don't need. That means it's for the customer not important, or it doesn't affect, let's say, the visual of your subject. That can be for a car, for example, if you have a car that is covered with car wrapping foil, or you get a little bit of the foil extra. Don't apply it on the car, or let's say some rests that you used, and spray them and just take a look how they will look after some time. Or you just open a car door and you can spray from the inside in some areas where you are not looking for sure and where it doesn't matter. You can just make a very small, tiny spray test here, and you can be sure that there will not happen anything. The same is valid for, let's say, painted, normally 1K, that means one component spray paints, or as well one component paints that you apply by brushing surfaces have to be regarded, because of the butan propan components of the sprays, that all of them have actually should be considered to be tested to be sure that you will not affect your original object. But as I told you, if you are spraying dry and you use the Tarnish 50, you shouldn't have any bigger deal with this kind of let's say, sprays, and you will be fine. Just choose the right spray and just make a test before. So that's it for the 5 most important tips for the application that I want to give you. And right now we are going to prepare the objects and just scan them with, as I told you, structured light, LED projected surfaces, and as well laser scanning. And let's take a look how the different results will look like with this different applications that I showed you. So here you can see the helmet that we sprayed in 3 different densities. The first area is just barely covered with some scanning spray. There is just, let's say, a small touch of dust on it, what should be fine for many cases. The second area is what we call the typical spray surface, like most of the customers do it. It's not totally covering the surface of the object, but it is, let's say, still quite a lot of spraying on it. And the third option is that there is all the surface covered, nearly nothing of the basic object is visible anymore. I wouldn't recommend it at all, but we are just make it to have the borders between the different application, let's say, possibilities that you see, and let's try to test what is best for which kind of the scanning. You can see that the different areas of spray density in the LED scanning have different results. If you don't spray enough or have no surface treatment on glossy black or transparent translucent areas, you will not receive any result, or you will have a very disturbed surface quality. So with an LED scanner, a hand scanner especially, you will have to carefully surface treat your objects that are shiny or black, and you should spray a little bit more than with the other technologies maybe. Working with structured light scanners, that is the main and basic principle for stationary scanners, is a little bit better, but not so much. You have the possibility here to filter with different kind of the lens filters, or you can use blue LED spectrum of the light just to get a little bit better results. But as well you have LED as a light source and just a different algorithm, so you will stay in any case sensitive against uncooperative surfaces, and as well, like in the LED hand scanning, it's worth to carefully surface treat your objects. The last scanner that we used on our example scans was the FreeScan UV Pro, and this modern laser scanner was, even with some areas that had already no surface treatment anymore, was able to scan the helmet better than all the others. But it as well is here not possible to scan a transparent windshield without surface treatment and spraying, so I always recommend you as well with laser scanners have a Tarnish 50 spray with you to be able to avoid problems and get better surface quality. So coming to the end, the Tarnish 50 is a very good general solution for most of the scanning cases, and we will be showing more tips and tricks about scan spray in our next application videos.